and so we can see each other. The work of Sesshin, the practice of Sesshin, the work of living, the practice of living, the work of dying, and the practice of dying. These are not separate things. The question is, how do we realize it? How do we make it real? How do we see through to the bottom of what's going on? And more than that, how do we live and die with that? How do we integrate this so that we can actually live authentically in a world that just seems determined to be anything but the human world anyway? I just can't believe how fortunate we all are to be practicing in this environment. It's just, you can't calculate it. There are some numbers you could put to things, but they don't catch it. If I asked you, what's this worth, and you quoted the amount spent, I'd wring your ass out. Not wrong, but not right. For example, after the noon meal, as the cleanup crew was at work, some of the Sangha was settling into rest. I went out here, some hot water, and I think a cheese stick. And just, have you seen the way these leaves and these trees move in the wind? Have you really heard that? What price this? What cost this? What is this? So I then was emboldened, and I walked along the other side of the Zendo, and was happy to see that the benches had been moved back, which is a good thing because they're getting beaten up by the weather, as we all are. And I sat down here and looked at what likely will be the temple area for the deceased, where the ashes will go. It felt so good just to sit in a chair and to rest and to just hold and feel the warmth of the cup in my hands and to listen as the birds sing and to look at the spot where very likely one day whatever's left of this body will go. It's a beautiful thing. What is it to sit in companionship with what actually is so? How do we stop running towards the false and settle down and embrace the real? There's no app for that. There's no book that'll catch it. It's not a matter of the special diet or the right color crystal. So what's it about? How do we get in? How do we inhabit our own life? From the Heikigan Roku, case 55. Alive or dead? Introduction. Quiet and secret, entirely one. Unimpeded action, immediate perception. Everything manifests awakening. Like a dash of sparks, like a flash of lightning, cutting through all confusion. Sitting on the tiger's head, seizing its tail, like a cliff 1,000 feet high. Can one help people by teaching a single way or not? To test, I cite this old case. Listen, listen. The main case. Old Master Dogo and Zengen went to a house to show sympathy. Zengen hit the coffin and asked, alive or dead? Dogo replied, I won't say alive. I won't say dead. Zengen demanded, why won't you say? Dogo repeated, I won't say. Later, on their way home, Zengen again cried, tell me right now, teacher, alive or dead. If you don't tell me, I'll hit you. Dogo said, well, you may hit me, but I won't say. Zengen hit him. And the case goes on, but we're just going to work with that part. Now, this story, you've got a teacher and a disciple. And obviously, the situation is that of a death. A Sangha member has passed away in their home, and they're going to make a visit to do the rites and to prepare things. So what's significant about that to know is that in this time in culture, that would be kind of a given. That's the way things are, how things are done. And also, the people in the house probably don't practice. Probably in this time and place and culture, the only ones who would sit zazen like yourselves would be the ordained folks. So you're probably in a house of grieving lay people. And here come the clergy. A scene familiar as long as human society has been organized. The crazy woman who lives at the end of the village has her purpose, and she's brought forth at the time of need. Everyone's a little bit afraid, but knows they need her, and she knows what to do. This kind of thing. So, enters the home of the lay folk. We're here. Please, reverends, come, please, come. There's the body. Now today, in our culture, many people do everything they can to avoid the body. This is a great mistake. This is a great loss. But in this culture and time, there are no options. I mean, sometimes they'd say, yeah, Grandpa went out for the long walk. But here we are in the home. And you can feel it. There's tears, there's grieving. I hope there's tears and grieving. This is best. This is good. Sadness, loss. And looking to these holy men for counsel, for surety, for some clarity. And the junior priest goes right up to the body, knocks on the coffin, alive or dead? I don't think Aunt Mary was all happy about that. But I don't know. I suspect it was a bit startling. I can imagine myself as a much younger me when grandpas, were at the funeral home for the visitation. This is the custom and the tradition I grew up in, and going up to that coffin and saying, alive or dead? Alive or dead? Quick, get the kid a beer, get him to the side. Here, have a chocolate. Sit down, son. Shut up. Although I don't know, but I think something like that. I can suppose that if there were clergy from my tradition of the time present, that would have been horrifying. And why is it even a question? Kid must be in denial. Poor kid. Let's get him some therapy. But maybe something else happening. Clearly here, something else is happening. This disciple is fully engaged. And again, I don't know. We don't have more information, but I suspect that this disciple has been confronting this koan for quite some while. This koan of alive or dead. I mean, after all, there's the wave, right? There's the beach, there's the ocean, there's the wave, obviously. But if you look closely, where is it? Is there really a wave? Really? What is happening here? Is there a wave? Where is it? You could go up to the water and smack on it and say, wave or no wave? This would be a very good question. This is someone's digging in, not just taking the surface to be the real. Of course, the surface is as real as anything else, but what's under it? When the wave hits the shore, does the wave die? Does the wave end? Did it begin in the first place? Is it an it? Again, what the hell is going on here? After the noon meal and it was time for the rest practice, the candle was blown out. Did the candle flame die? Was it born? If your mind is inhabited by constant Instagram notifications, I think these questions would never arise. Depending on your feed, I suppose. To really engage, we have to take the backward step and settle down and be still. This stillness is absolutely essential. There is no substituting it. So anyway, our disciple in question, he, with some sincerity and some strong motivation, and I think urgency, I feel, alive or dead? And I'm sure he's looking right at his teacher. Now, the first time the teacher responds, if you notice, the teacher says, I won't say alive. I won't say dead. How is that not just being an asshole? How is that not just evading and avoiding this sincere question? Why should avoid? Or is that avoiding? Now remember, a teacher is always teaching. An awakened human Buddha is constantly radiating the Dharma, even when they're not aware of it or trying to or doing something really stupid, in some kind of way, but particularly in an interaction like this. The teaching is happening. And that's an important thing to realize when you're looking at these koan. It's very easy to just assume it's nonsense and move on. But I beg you, please don't. When these Zen masters and their disciples are interacting, it might seem like nonsense from the outside, but that's only from the outside. That is a full response. Absolutely. And yet, our disciple seems not to, it doesn't get traction. Which really should be no surprise to anyone here. I've been trying to teach you for a long time now. And it's certainly no surprise to me. I studied under many very patient guides along the way. So this is how it is, and that's fine. Nonetheless, in our case here, Zengen, and the translation we have says demanded. Pretty strong language, you know. I'm not fluent in the original Chinese and what have you, but that's a pretty strong word. And remember, you're in the house of a mourning family, a grieving family. Like, that's the context that this is happening in, right? That's the mandala of this exchange. There's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of shit going down, things getting real, okay? And, oh boy, to just break free and engage like this, it's a risky business, huh? So, alive or dead? And Dogo replied, I won't say alive, I won't say dead. Now, one of the things about this, if you notice, if you in your third ear, when you hear that, if you say, I won't say alive, I won't say dead, you get a certain take. I won't say alive. I won't say dead. Well, suddenly this tune is in a different key a little bit, right? And then, I won't say alive. I won't say dead. Again, what is the truth that these words are pointing to? Because that's, at their best, that's what they are. They're abstract representations built of sounds and gurglings. And some traditions put a lot of emphasis on sounds and the meanings. And this is noble. But ultimately, what is it? We have many dharani in our tradition. This is Buddhist magic. These are sounds that themselves have a certain capacity, cause certain conditions to arise and others not to. But here, what's happening? Well, what we know is the disciple demanded, like, no, I'm not kidding, alive or dead. And I can kind of feel the family all kind of backing up, almost like in the old wild spaghetti westerns when the dude goes into the saloon. Everybody backs up, Jed, I'm looking for you. So I can imagine, this venerated abbot or whatever and disciple there, and there's already some weight, and then this exchange starts happening and the family backs off a little bit and maybe some eager child leans in. Maybe the adults cower. And I think I feel a child there, like going like this and listening intently. Another piece of this puzzle is that in China, in the era when this happened, the Confucian specificity around social roles was intense. What does the host do? What does the guest do? What does the first son do? What does the second son do? And the first daughter, and on and on and on. Very, very specific, right? This way, not that. Confucius, after all, said that people suffer because they don't know what they're supposed to do, so spell everything out. You think we befuddle ourselves trying to arrange a retreat or a liturgy. Try to arrange everyone's life. Whoa, man. I think somehow the Chinese are still trying in some way. I don't know. Anyway, all the more kind of weight. So even that this exchange happened in the first time is already beyond anyone's pale. Like, what is going on here? And that the disciple doesn't accept and demands more. Well, there's some live wires crossing here, and I think it's great. And obviously, it's come down to us through the centuries. I think a few other people noticed the value of this exchange as well. But what about you? Zengen demanded, why won't you say? Why? Why won't you say? Why won't you just tell me, for God's sake? Now, this is a question that comes up now and then. Why won't you just tell me what the fuck this moo thing is? Or, the meaning of the Dharma, whatever, There are some words that can be bandied around, but honestly, let's get real. Would it help? Would it hurt? This is dangerous territory. Extraordinarily dangerous. Why? Because your mind is basically a virtuoso at taking language as though it's real. You have to be extraordinarily careful with explaining things. Try to explain, you can kill that person's ability to ever see it or play a significant role in the tragedy, at least. This is why in many, many places of Zen training, the library is non-existent or locked away. Famous incident with the Dalai Lama, maybe you've heard this. There was a Rinzai, I think, Zen temple And the Dalai Lama was in town, and they said, "Oh, let's have the Dalai Lama come and bless our temple. It would be wonderful." And this was back in the day when such a thing was possible, because it was a while ago. So the Dalai Lama came in, and in all deference to His Holiness, he said, "Well, sure, I'm here to bless. Where's the library?" And the abbot said, "Oh, well, Holiness, we don't have a library." And His Holiness said, "But, so you don't have the teachings?" And the abbot said, "Oh, no, we have the teachings." "Well, where's the library? I can't bless this. Where's the sutras? I need to see the sutras, so I'm blessing." Whoa, okay, this misfired a little bit. And interestingly, His Holiness left without blessing the Zen temple. He simply said, "I can't bless. There's no sutras here. I can't do it. I wish you all well." And they had tea over it or something, but it was kind of a misfire. Now, I don't know what he would do today. I think today he's in a very different mind, but who can say? But the point is, why would that be the case? And by the way, we do have a library, and it's expanding, and I'm very excited about that. I hope you all check out books and read them. They're curated for us. We've selected carefully, just to be clear on that point. But there is a point to not having the library. What is it? That has a value too. Again, be careful with words. Be very, very careful. Or be very clear. That's fine too. Anyway, the disciple says, "Why won't you say?" Dogo replied, "I won't say." Now, we don't have the details, but this is just a line sketch, What happened with the family? Did everyone just hors d'oeuvre? I mean, how did people maneuver from there? I don't know. And was this a twinkle in the eye, or was this a sword raised? And maybe both. It's hard to say. But I'm sure that the teacher was meeting the student exactly where they were. And I do suspect there was a child in the back taking all of this in, though it's not recorded here. I could see that. Anyway, the rites were concluded. Everyone made as graceful an exit as they could, and the master and disciple began their walk back to the temple. But the disciple was still stewing, still seething, I don't know, cooking, right? Like the water is boiling, but it's a pressure cooker. The lid's on, and it's boiling, and it's boiling, and it's boiling. And finally, he could bear it no more, because he finally figured out that the master's actually not going to tell me. Maybe he's like, "Oh, okay, I get it. We're in front of the lay people. Oh, okay. Maybe on the walk home, we'll get there we go." Not happening. Not happening. It could be that they got within the shadow of the temple gate, and he's like, "Fuck, he's not going to tell me. I'm not having this. Hey, remember that thing we're talking about? What the hell, bro?" Can you believe he's just not talking about it? How can he do that? So on their way home, Zengen, and now the descriptor is perfect, cried. "Tell me right now, alive or dead." It could be that it's through tears and sobbing. It could be crying out. Maybe both. Clearly, though, this is an earnest seeker of something. An earnest seeker. Can you imagine, can you feel how real this question is for that disciple? That's a necessary ingredient, you know. If you just fiddle with and play with it, it's not enough motivation. It's just not. It's not a hobby. I think there are probably far more pleasurable hobbies on offer. But I think none that can actually lead to joy like this can. Anyway, the disciple, tell me now, teacher, alive or dead. If you don't tell me, I'll hit you. Dogo said, you can hit me, but I won't say, and offered his face, which isn't written, but is what I can feel. So Dogo hit him, or Zengun hit him. But even receiving blows from the student, which happens at times, he wouldn't break his oath. He wouldn't spoil the sincerity of this practitioner with words just to avoid a punch to the face. Which would you rather? Punch to the face or give somebody some words and get them off your case? You know, a lot of times I'll just give somebody the words, but if we're talking about the Dharma, no, not really. Talk about the customer is always right, being completely frigging wrong. I want the quick answer now. No. What do you mean, no? I paid you. No, you didn't. It's not for sale. Never has been. It's just completely in a different realm. This love is not for sale. It's offered freely, but you have to get it. You have to take it. You have to realize it yourself. That's the thing. Now with this, the next teaching is later, after the great Master Dogo died. So that exchange, that ends scene one of our drama, okay? This did not resolve for that student, but that doesn't mean that it's not doing exactly what needs to be done. And I would really like to emphasize that. There are many, many times where, as a practitioner and a student of the way, you're engaging in a barrier and it is kicking your ass and you are not seeing it and it's painful as hell. I know that feeling very, very well. There isn't anybody on the Ancestors' Wall that doesn't. Okay? But that isn't the total picture of what's happening. That engaging in the question already is perfect. Trust the process. Trust it completely. So anyway, sometime later, now we don't know. I don't think it was the next day. Could have been a decade later. I don't know. But after time, Master Dogo died. And the disciple then was working with his successor, which is common, by the way. That's what happens, you know. If you're working under a master and the master passes away, you just continue on with the lineage holder and keep at it, yeah? Well, later, after Dogo died, Zengen went to Sekiso and told him the foregoing story. Now, I don't know offhand if Sekiso is actually a successor to Dogo or not, or if he was just another master down the way or something. Wouldn't it be lovely if there was like sanghas, like instead of McDonald's everywhere? Can you imagine how wonderful that would be if actually on every corner, instead of the golden arches, there was like a place of sanity? I would love that, as long as it's real. We humans have this way, as soon as a thing starts doing good, the emperor takes over and subsidizes it and starts to own it, and then it becomes a governmental measure of power, and oh, fuck. That's worse. But real Sangha, real practitioners of the way, I would love it if every car driving by had a practitioner at the wheel. It doesn't even, I'm not even saying they have to do exactly like we do. Do what makes sense, but practice earnestly. Well, in this case, Master Dogo dies, and this disciple goes to another teacher and told him the whole story. Who's there? Master, I'm a disciple of Dogo. He's passed away. Oh, yes, I've heard. Come, have tea. You're distraught at the passing of your master. Of course, he was a good man. I knew him. We drank once in a while. He was a good guy. I'm sorry for his... No. Yes, but no. That's not why I'm here, and that's not why I'm upset. Oh. Tell me. And the room turns into a Doksan room. Not a simple greeting. Again, it's not written, but it's what I kind of pull between the lines. And so he tells him, well, years ago, there was a death. We went. The whole story. Knocked on the coffin, alive or dead. Everyone was horrified. I didn't care. I needed to know. He said, I won't say alive. I won't say dead. And I couldn't believe it, but I shouted, why won't you say? And he said, I won't say. Monitor. And so, yes, please, someone. No, it's okay. One's enough. We don't need a team. And so, I was walking home with the teacher to the temple. I thought for sure he was going to tell me once we got in private. He didn't. He wouldn't. And we got to the temple gate, and I said, you got to tell me right now, or I'm going to punch you. And he said, you can punch me, but I'm not telling. And he put out his face, and I punched it. But he still didn't tell me. And this was how many years ago? This was one breath ago. This is happening right now, isn't it? And so, Sekiso said, I won't say alive. I won't say dead. Zengen said, well, why won't you say? Sekiso said, I won't say. I won't say. And at these words, Zengen finally came to awakening. There was a ripening that had to take place. There was a maturing that needed to occur. The question was there, but he wasn't ready to see it yet. And it sucks. It really sucks, but it's beautiful. It's better to struggle with the real question than to be easy with bullshit. Right? Long term, you know. Maybe when you're a kid, you think the lollipop is fine for dinner. It tastes better. But you're beyond that now. And to this disciple's credit, that koan of daily life, that encounter born from the experience of his life, and not only that, his master's death. I'm sure that this disciple was at the funeral for old Master Gendo. Dogo. I'm sure he was there, and that's a big deal, by the way. You're not missing the fact that death has happened. You can bet that this whole thing was just churning and stirring in there. But he stayed with it, didn't he? He could have said, oh, enough of this, I'm done, and just turn in his robes and go be a truck driver. People do that. He could have bailed at any point. He didn't. And this is an essential quality of the practitioner. You have to be willing to stay in contact with the question. You have to be willing to stay in contact with the edge of your practice and not just go far enough that you're comfortable and then try to make a nest there, because you won't be able to. You try that, it will fail. And you think, oh, this doesn't work for me, and you leave. Tragedy. So this warrior-spirited student stayed with the grief, stayed with the question, and stayed with the lineage significantly. And the mind of Master Dogo and the mind of Master Sekiso is not two different minds. It's the same mind. Precisely the same mind. And so as the maturation occurred, and as the integration occurred, and as the thing continued and continued and continued, he did the right thing. He went before the Zen master and showed him his mind, which is an act of just intense bravery. It really is. Vast is the robe of vulnerability, a formless field of, oh my God. I vow to run like hell. But no, I won't, but I think about it. Sometimes. Anyway, he stayed with it, which is why we know his name and why his practice is informing this noble assembly centuries later. Old Master Dogo, Old Master Sekiso, and Zengen, they're all here. You hear the birds? The way the light plays on the leaves, and how they rustle in the breeze. And even in the ease and joy that is late spring, early summer, the depth of winter is right inside. The darkest day of the year is right inside. The barren trees with no leaves and the cold winter snow is not separate. So, old Zengen came to his awakening. Old Master Dogo combusted his life to help the Sangha. Sekiso took up the torch when it was turn for him to do so. And now, the perfume of their practice scents this hall. But it won't help you unless you dig in. Luckily, you know how. Even if you think you don't, because you're here. All you have to do is fill that seat. Really. So let's take it up together. All of it. All of it. Don't leave anything outside. May it be so.